Hi, everyone. Welcome to this live transmission. As you can see, I have a super special guest with me today. Dear friend, we have barely spoken, yet I consider her soul-wise very, having a very beautiful connection with her. It was more of a reencounter. Um, I had the honor to be recently in her YouTube channel, and now it was my opportunity. So, having said this, she's a remarkable woman, a remarkable being. She's doing amazing things for the collective. She's the ambassador of the Star Seed Children Ambassador, founder of Aramis Creative Learning Center. She will tell us more about that in a bit. And her name is Sherri Divband. So, um, welcome, Sherri.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on your channel. Now, we get to both be on each other's channels. This is a lot of fun to switch places. Now you get to ask me questions.
And so many questions, by the way.
Yeah.
So, first of all, I want to ask you so that the tribe gets to know you a little bit more for the ones that don't know you about you already. And is how did you begin this path? Why children? Why? I know that you go through many things, you cover many things, not only about the children, yet also, like even as this very same title says, trauma transcendence, soul fractals, retrieval, and so forth. So, but yet, how did your path begin with children?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think with similarly to a lot of people, it wasn't a straight line. So there's lots of curves and U-turns and side steps. And so children were never at the forefront of my mind growing up. It wasn't anything that I thought about doing. Actually, if I were to have a conversation with like the 5-year-old version of me right now, going back in time, saying, as a 44-year-old woman, you would be doing this right now, I'd be like, get out of here. Like, no way. Because I was such a shy, introverted, quiet little child. I'm an only child. I had teen parents. And so I'm not going to go into the traumas because I think most people have heard my speeches, but I've had a lot of trauma growing up and I was very lonely. And so it was the animal kingdom that actually introduced me to spirituality and what it were the catalyst for my awakening and a lot of what I'm doing. Now, of course, the birth of my children helped get me even further, but it was the animals that saved me because I was an only child. There was sexual abuse. There was a lot. There was a lot going on. I moved around quite a bit. I was always the new kid at school, so I never had friends. I was also really skinny and lanky and awkward and shy, so I didn't have a lot of friends, and I was an easy target. So I was bullied a lot. And so I didn't have any friends to talk to at school. And then at home, I was, really lonely without a sibling to at least fight with. And so I grew up with a dog, a German Shepherd, and that German Shepherd, I believe, was placed in my life to be my protector and to open up my heart and to be my guardian. And so I learned true unconditional love through this dog. And she was my best friend, and I did everything with her, and I would talk to her, and I would brush her hair, and I would play with her, and I would put bows, and we would play Barbies together, and we did everything together. But the thing about it is it's so much bigger than that, because she was the catalyst for me to really appreciate the animal kingdom. And I could tell at a very young age there was a clear division between humans and animals from what I could see, even from a very young age. How could it be that animals were so unconditionally loving? How could they be so gentle, so nourishing, so beautiful, so kind, so much fun? And the adults to me were mean, abusive, arrogant, scary. And I had I was so turned off by people, and animals were the opposite. And so I had such a deep appreciation and love for the animal kingdom. So in my mind, I was going to hide from humanity and just be with animals. So I was going to be that girl that was going to become a veterinarian, and all the animals, and that focus my life on animals and forget people, right? Like, people suck. And that's what I thought. And so in high school, I went into veterinary medicine, and I started my career thinking that I was going to be a doctor. Long story short, I realized that the vets were the ones that were continuously in the rooms with the people negotiating estimates and talking. It was just like daunting and awful. And I was like, I don't want anything to do with this. And the nurses, which we call veterinary technicians in the back, are the ones that were cuddling with the dogs and cats and doing all the treatments. And I was like, I want to be back here with them. This is what I want to do. I had a huge epiphany about it. So I went into nursing, animal nursing. And so I did 20 years of my career was spent working with animals. And so that was my initial kind of opening to spirituality, was the animal kingdom. So I worked in general practice, surgery, and ICU was my favorite. I loved working in the intensive care unit because I would have my 12-hour shift, and I would be in the back of the hospital in the ICU. And of course it was restricted. So like, not many people could go back there. The vets would leave you alone, and you had your patients, and you were by yourself taking care of all the animals. And, I didn't have to talk to many people, and I was really good at it. But it was really hard on the heart because these animals were in the worst shape you can possibly imagine. I'm in the critical care unit, so I'm with the worst of the worst on ventilators. I mean, you imagine it was really hard. So I would learn I wanted to learn a better way. I felt like there has to be more than this modern medicine. And I worked in one of the best hospitals there was in California at that time. Celebrities took their pets there. I mean, it was a big deal. It was better. It was cleaner and nicer than most regular hospitals for people. So it wasn't that we didn't have the medicine or the equipment, but I thought there has to be more we can do for these animals. So I learned, and I wanted to learn energy healing. So I went into Reiki to learn healing for animals so that I could help them in a different way. And so all of this led to animal communication, and I started communicating with animals. And so animals were kind of they're the ones that grounded me and helped me through a really difficult upbringing in my youth, because I did go through a very dark period, dark night of the soul, whatever you want to call it. Around the time I graduated high school, I was fighting a lot with my mom, and I was really angry. I had so much anger inside me, Isha, because I was so bullied, and I never spoke up for myself. I was so quiet. I was such a nice kid, never did anything wrong, never got into any trouble. So I had so much inside. Like, I was so dark inside. I was just so filled with bitterness and anger. And I felt like the light just went out of me. It just flew right out of me. So I kind of went into the shadow side for a little bit. And thank God I was with the animals, because I think they helped me at least stay centered enough that I didn't hurt myself. But I mean, I started drag racing. I was racing cars. I could have killed myself. I could have killed somebody else. I didn't even care. I never got into drugs or alcohol, but I was just really destructive and I was kind of mean. And I became that person that I hated in everyone else. I was like, you know what? I'm going to hurt you before you hurt me. And so the only place I felt safe was when I was working with the animals. And then outside the outside world, I was this like, I was kind of a bitch. I don't know if I can say that here, but I was not nice. And I was probably the worst version of myself. And so I went through a really dark period of growth and destructive behavior. So it wasn't until I met my husband now, 23 years ago, who I say saved my life. He saved me from myself. He got me out of that dark tunnel of destruction. And he basically was like, stop taking yourself so serious. Like, what the heck's wrong with you? And he really just like shook me in a way that I needed somebody to put me in my place. And that really shifted the trajectory. And it got me ready because 2 years later, we had our first son. And that is when everything started for me. So me having children is when everything changed. But that's kind of how I got to that point. I'm going to stop there because that was a lot I just said.
No, and it was wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing with us your story, because I feel that the more that we acknowledge that even though we are in this path of awareness, of consciousness, it's not like we were just brought here one day, on ta-da, and yeah, everything is perfect. And yes, we are galactic beings. We are using disguises to say it somehow. We are definitely bringing a reality as humans, nevertheless, and therefore is that we get to experience and to co-create and create within the very same, through the whole spectrum of what being human is. Mm-hmm. And being inside of a simulation. And that takes a lot of those tough experiences, that you are a very brave being, and not only for going through that, yet overcoming that, transcending that. And that's also what allows us, as you know, to choose better in our mission, because we know that we can bring a lot of awareness to beings that are going through the same thing, or that went through the same experiences, and that they don't know how to get out of them, and even now touching the topic of kids, this sacred canvas that are brought to this reality by a conscious choice, even though we don't fully remember. Mm-hmm. And that once, like, I wanted to ask you, because you said that the way that you first enter into this, into the full spectrum of the StarSeeds, was through animals. So what would you say is something that kids and animals share? Because we can go through unconditional love. The thing is that, and here is something very big, animals can be abused, mainly even dogs, and they will still keep blossoming the unconditional love, regardless. In the case of humans, it's different. Once you touch a very specific line, then, they will be experiencing what you just mentioned, like going to the other pole, being from victim to victimary, but in the case of animals, their bandwidth, it's so much higher. They can take on and take on and take on and take on until they finally are disrupted. But to get there, why would you think is that? That's my question. What do you think is that program, that information within the DNA encoding of the animals that they are so amplified on unconditional love, most of them.
It's a really good question, and that's actually what my latest book that came out this year was about: healing the human animal bond. And I go into exactly that. And what it is it's the density of consciousness. And so we have to separate wildlife and domestic animals because they truly do have different purposes and different energy. And so, speaking domestically, just like you said, just for the conversation of children in comparison to animals, if you look at domesticated animals, so the dogs and the cats that are in our homes with us, that are, with us day to day, in a more unconditional, loving type of manner, as opposed to wildlife, who we are not, that we don't own, the density of consciousness of the animal kingdom is so much higher. And that's why I learned at such a young age on my own, because it traditionally you're taught that there's a hierarchy and animals are beneath us and they're our food, they're for our entertainment, and you can harm them and who cares, and it's not a big deal. And I learned on my own through my own experience. I'm like, that's not true. And I knew that from a young age. I said, no, there are teachers. These are master guardians. I didn't even know what those words meant back then, but that's how those were the words that are coming out now is how I felt back then. And I realized that the density of consciousness of the souls that volunteer to come in as a domesticated animal are generally more ascended than we are. So they vibrate at the frequency of the fifth dimension. So they don't anchor into the third dimension because they're not here to have a third dimensional experience. Now, I'm speaking mostly. That's why there's a whole book about it. This is in most cases. So they're here to actually teach us unconditional love, no matter what, even if they are abused, even if we ignore them, even if we are terrible owners and we forget to feed them sometimes. I mean, whatever it may be, they're always there to let us know, hey, I still love you. It's okay. To release the guilt, because they're master healers, they're teachers, and they're mentors. So they come into our lives to project that so that we can learn those lessons. And then they also mirror our own traumas and our behaviors to teach us. So they mirror how we act. That's why sometimes if you have a really anxious dog, well, look at the owner of that dog, and they're probably very anxious too, or a lot of different. If you have a very shy, timid person, their animal might be very shy and timid. So there's a lot of mirroring of that. But the thing about it is their density of consciousness is so much higher than ours. No better and worse. We're never in comparison. It's not a competition. But the souls that volunteer to come in to be a domesticated animal do come from a higher density of consciousness on purpose, because they are here to anchor in that higher dimensional energy, that higher frequency. So they don't have the emotional spectrum or the primal, let's say, they're not subject to programming like we have been through subliminal messaging, through 3D interference, through being traumatized, like me, being kidnapped as a young child, or being molested sexually by an older man, or whatever it may be. An animal experiences that it passes through them. They don't get trapped in they don't get fragmented and trapped in the experience like we do, because of this human species is different. We volunteer to come in to have this third dimensional experience. Well, that's debatable. Let's just say that most of us do. I mean, there's a lot of variations to that. So that's not actually accurate 100%. But let's say those that do come in and volunteer, we volunteer to be that human. And humans have a spectrum of emotions. And when we have a spectrum of emotions, we oscillate quite frequently in and out of anywhere from fear and sadness, guilt, shame, all the way to pure love and joy. And that's part of the human experience. That's why people want to be human, so that we can work through conflict and have traumas or have these experiences, and you learn from them, and you learn to process the emotions and feel through them. And we learn lessons from them. And animals aren't here to do that. They've probably already done that and they've mastered it. And then they come in to teach us. So that's why a child can be so fragmented, like myself, and get so traumatized that I become a different version of myself, whereas an animal stays the same. Now, of course, I have a chapter in my book called The Exception. And of course, there are animals that are severely abused. And a lot of, and that's a whole chapter in the book, but basically they can get trapped down into the third dimension. They can be attacked psychically by astral entities. They can get dis-ease from taking on too much, and then they can suffer just like us. And that's a whole long other conversation.
Yeah, I agree. I truly couldn't agree more in everything that you said. And which brings me to the fact that there is many people that believe that by transcending the animal within is that we become a more evolved species. And that's a very interesting point, because the more that I tune into the animals and how they behave, they, again, generalizing, it's not like an always rule, but
Right.
generalizing is that, for instance, reptiles do show emotions. We talk about the reptile brain, and like as being like the most fierce, less, and or like super um cold-blooded beings in all the extension of the word, not just biologically speaking,
Right.
yet that they don't care about anything and so forth. And I have had profound connections, for instance, with crocodiles, that feeling me empathy for them because they are being trapped and caged in houses. And, they can communicate at such deep levels through the heart. And I do believe that it's mostly about not having found a way to truly communicate with animals
Mhm.
from a higher level of consciousness. That's the thing,
Mhm.
that we have been communicating with them from a lower level of consciousness, which is that hierarchy part that you have said, believing that we are superior and so forth. And that has disabled our capability to communicate with them from the true core of who they are, and all the wisdom, all the mastery, the unconditional love that they are capable to bring into the table, to
Yeah.
just that visceral aspect of them. And even, on to some extent, I might say that as we have communicated with only that side of them, the visceral aspect, is that we have amplified that aspect within them instead of the other aspects of them, like the wisdom and so forth. They inherently have that unconditional love, most of them, again. Yet it's like, if I communicate with you telepathically and non-verbally instead of verbally, then I'm quite sure that we will leave the verbal communication outside and we will just start communicating telepathically,
Mhm.
but now use that in another way. If I communicate with you through sword words and, like tough language, and, then that's the way that we will communicate. We're just bringing feedback.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And we all have the capability to telepathically communicate with animals. If anything, I've been teaching animal communication for I don't even know how long, really long time. And I always tell people they're the easiest to communicate actually with than any other beings, because they are able to bring their frequency down so low, domestic animals generally speaking, because they come and match our level. They're not third dimensional, but they can bring themselves into our dimension and they can communicate with us the easiest. And most times we are communicating with them and we don't realize it, because they are communicating with us through our thoughts, through our mind. And so we don't realize it's subtle sometimes, and they are communicating with us all the time and we don't realize it. And then some of us do realize it. Uh, children communicate easier. Children do a lot of we always do things easier most of the time when we're children, because we have less blocks and we have less limiting beliefs and something in our mind telling us we're wrong, because when as we grow up, we're constantly told, no, you're wrong, do it this way, or this is the better way. And so we lose confidence in ourselves. When you have that confidence as a child, You just know things just, it is what it is. And animals are beautiful protectors, these dogs and these cats. Another reason they came into our reality, it not only to give us unconditional love and to be our supporters and to literally act as conduits. They pull negative energy and they heal us. Some even die for us. Some of them take on our illness and they will take on the cancer that we were about to get. And I write about that in my book, and I've talked about that a lot. And they do that for us because they know their soul is going to transcend. They're going to leave this life. It was a very brief life. They use their little bodies as a conduit to take in that illness for us, and then they pass on, and their soul is still with us. And we should have so much gratitude instead of guilt that maybe we did something wrong or it's our fault. If anything, they're trying to get the message out that no, I came in here, this was our soul agreement. I came in here to help you heal. I'm your therapy. That's where we get the term therapy animal. But they also can protect us from physical and astral and psychic attack. So our dogs tend to be more grounded. They ground us and they protect us from physical attack. But cats are very astral. And they are the rulers and the guardians of that astral realm. So when we are sleeping in the dream state, or they are constantly, what's the word I'm trying to think of? They're going through our house and they are closing portals. They are ushering out lower density entities. They are protecting us. I literally had a cat that sat in front of the TV of a client of mine for weeks because they had inadvertently opened the black box technology portal through watching too many scary movies. And the cat sat there, was literally blocking the open portal so the entities wouldn't come in and attack his family. And it wasn't until we had the session and we realized what was going on and we closed the portal and they stopped watching the scary movies and the cat never went back to the TV. So our cats protect us from dimensional tears, open portals, the lower astral realm. And animals are incredible. I mean, they are a big part of my life, and appreciation for them is so immense that it was really hard for me to actually transition from working with animals to children, because I kind of felt like I was abandoning the animals, but the animals told me, no, it's time for you to help people now. And, we got you to where you are, to trust in yourself, believe in yourself, open your heart. And then I started working with children as a result.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, because I do believe that you were talking about the bullying, and I know that that's a huge topic, that has led even to some kids or even to some adults to think that kids can be evil, of how much anger they can throw at other kid, and we are aware that the core is not there, that kid was most likely abused in many manners. So it's ways that their psyche is coping with their reality. Some of them will immediately become abusers. Some of them will become first for a while victims and being abused, and then they will go into the other pole, because that's some of the human nature, polarization, going through both poles, until we find that axis, that we are the center of our own creation and manifestation. So, having said this, you have this foundation for, like, the Aramis Foundation. Do you implement a lot of programs that involve children communicating with animals? Because I know that there are programs that also involve, children with autism, that the more that they communicate or get like connect with animals like horses, they actually go beyond that autism, because even at a genetic level, at a chromosomic level, if we see what is the chromosome that amplifies psionics, on the other side is also the one that triggers autism, if misleaded. So even that, they're trying to be controlled in that way. So do you
Yeah,
Yeah.
There's so many ways to go with what you just said, because there's such a misconception with the label of autism in general. And one of my biggest platforms is moving away from that and not labeling the children anymore, because there's a nefarious reason behind it. And really, a lot of times, a lot of the reason children are labeled autistic is because they are very galactic. These higher density beings are coming into these bodies um, more than they ever have before. And they are holding such a high frequency that the bodies are having a difficult time integrating. And what they're doing is they're activating that DNA, and that dormant DNA that is the consciousness aspect of us. So they get overwhelmed, and they don't want to look at people in the eyes, because they can see that. I've been told by children, I can see their demons, and they don't want to see through the soul of somebody through their eyes, because it's very overwhelming, overstimulating. They don't speak our words. They're nonverbal, because a lot of times they don't want to they know our words are spells. So they will refuse to speak. They will not use our words, because they know that they invoke a negative energy, and they're here to teach us telepathy. Some of them are here as humans for the first time, and they flap their arms and they walk on their tippy toes, and they don't eat a lot of food, things like that, because they are learning the human body. They're learning how this density and how to use it. And they have seemingly odd behavior, because they are figuring out how to integrate and how to speak. Sometimes it's nothing about word spells. They just they're in observation for years. They watch everyone around them. And the next thing you know, at 3-4 years old, they're speaking in full sentences. Well, they've just spent the last 3-4 years observing how you speak, watching you, looking like the way you move your mouth, the way you enunciate, how you're speaking. And then they feel like once they've mastered it and feel comfortable, then they start speaking. So I specialize in children like that. And I have to rewind and explain how that happened. So my first son at 23 years old came into my life, opened up my heart, saved my life, because he got me out of the darkness. And he was my first activator. 7 years later, and he's a crystal child. Crystal children come into this world to open up our hearts. They are the sweetest, kindest, most gentle, easygoing souls. And they came in huge numbers in the early 2000s on purpose, because they needed to open the hearts of people and activate us. So they are non-confrontational. They're easygoing. They get along with everyone. They won't fight. They're very beautiful, gentle, and almost angelic-like souls. So he came in first, opened my heart. I needed to be ready for that. I think that's why my husband and I got together years before, so I could be prepared for that awakening. Then I had 7 years later a star child. Now, star children are the ones that are generally diagnosed with Asperger's, that form of autism. They are highly intellectual. A lot of them come from Sirius. A lot of them are Arcturian. A lot of them are coming from very high vibrational, intellectual, engineer, innovative minded, architectural souls that come here to be part of creating the new earth. So they are very logical. They are very analytical. They're activators. They think a lot. They're not here to have a spiritual experience a lot of the time. So they don't want to be children. They are like little adults, and they communicate differently, and they seem awkward, and they're very intelligent, like highly intelligent. And they're here to bring in new technology and innovation and wisdom. And they're very different from crystal children. And so 2 years before my daughter came into my life, her soul came to me and said, "Hey, I'm coming into your life. I'm going to be your daughter, and we have a lot of work to do together. And I need you to be prepared and give me permission, because we have a big job to do together." So at that point, I'm working at the zoo. I'm doing animal communication sessions, and I'm not doing a lot of work with people yet. And so I'm thinking, oh, what am I going to do with this star child? And I started channeling her weekly for a year before she was even conceived. And she taught me all about starseed children. Every week I have journals where I would telepathically communicate with her soul, and I would write. And she explained to me who the indigos were, and the crystal children, and the star children, and the rainbow children, and the divine children. And she taught me how children were coming in waves with different characteristics from different planets all over the galaxies, even other universes, to be our guides, our mentors, our teachers, our activators, to change everything. And a lot of them are misunderstood and called things like, oh, they have hyperactivity disorder or their learning disabilities. And she explained to me that that's because they are different and they are multidimensional, and we're not supposed to sit still in a classroom for 6 hours and in prison style classrooms with fluorescent lighting and being lectured at. That's not how most galactic civilizations operate. So they're struggling for a reason. They're here to let us know, hey, this is not working out well for us. So she was the catalyst for me to really delve in, and I started to attract nonverbal, labeled autistic children and families with extremely psychic children. So I started writing books, and my idea was I was going to open a metaphysical center for children so that they could learn about energy, the chakras, astrology, crystals, anything you can imagine metaphysical and esoteric. I was like, I'm going to teach children what they don't learn in school. And I thought that's what I was going to do. And her and I were going to do together, because she's a very galactic being. She's a warrior spirit. So she's very challenging. So anyways, long story short, it turned into a realization through many avenues that it's the education is the issue here. Our education system is way too old. It's indoctrination system, and it's set up in a lot of nefarious ways with a lot of interference for a reason. And we can talk about all of that. It's in all of my books. I've done a million podcasts on it. And what I realize is the legacy that she's coming in was to bring to the forefront of my awareness that we need conscious education, and we need to change the entire system of education. So then I started a nonprofit called the Aramis Collective about 5 years ago. And I started working towards public speaking about the education system and why these children are different and how they're misunderstood and why we shouldn't be medicating them and how we can help them and how we can pull people together to get resources, and how I want to open up a physical schools everywhere. So it started as a virtual component 5 years ago. And so we do online classes. So anyone can take them from anywhere. It's not limited to one location. But what I'm working towards now, and what I focus my energy on, is not only working with psychic children and families navigate the challenges of having children that are different, and very forward thinking and innovative, and how to operate that. We are working to open up our first physical school here in Florida, which we don't use. We're trying to change the words. So school, by the way, is an anagram for louche. So we say learning centers. We don't have teachers because we have mentors. And so we're opening up conscious learning centers for children to thrive. And that's what it's about, for them to find their passion. And so it's nonprofit. It will operate much like a church in the sense that it will be donation based and it will be free for the community. And so your question, sorry, I'm going on a long tangent.
No, horses, I love it.
Horses came to me in a session 4 years ago. They started coming in a lot when I was doing my sessions, because I do soul readings for adults and children. So horses were coming into my sessions for both adults and children. And they kept coming in all these sessions. And I'm like, these horses keep coming to me. And they were saying, horses are here to help. Horses are guardian spirits of the planet, of the land, record keepers, just like elephants. And they want to help the children. And that I need to incorporate animals with the conscious learning centers that I'm creating. And that's the full circle. So that's why I worked with animals for so long. And I had that aha moment of, oh, that's why I spent 20 years of my life working with animals. So now I'm going to help children reestablish and reconnect the bond, to heal the bond of animals. And so animals are a huge part of our learning component. Horses, even dogs and cats, and teaching children not only to respect and reestablish the connection and energy between the animals, but to understand their purpose and how they help us and how they can help them therapeutically, emotionally, and also just being in their presence is very healing. So that's a big part. So the animals are a big part of what we're creating, which is something you had mentioned a while back.
Yeah. Well, thank you for everything that you said. I feel this is spectacular. I will go into the learning center or remembrance center.
Yeah, right.
uh, because that's very much aligned as well to what I have been receiving, because we have been focusing on correcting the flaw, yet correct like acknowledging that there is no flaw, at least how I see it. There are anomalies, and those anomalies are actually serving to create a shift in awareness. So if we focus in the ones that are actually holding the arcs of our origin in a way that, not that we are not, yet that it's purer in them, it's untouched. So the more that we hold a space for them so that they continue amplifying their capabilities, just being by being, then that's a ripple effect that actually it can be more organic. We went as a generation as that tough part, like needing to break the wall and so forth in order for all these codes to be transmitted. Now it's important for us to leave that behind. We
Mhm.
don't need to break walls anymore. What we need to do is actually start building new structures,
Exactly.
and that part, in like what I mean by this is, the more that we focus on old school ways to transcend what we experienced as child, what the shadow work and so forth, then we're continuing to perpetuate a very tough reality. Whereas these beautiful star seeds, we ourselves show us, like whether if indigo, child, crystal, you know, uh, many types of, we can actually remember that it's easier. It's not that you are not acknowledging the baggage that you created as a soul to transcend here. No, it's actually that you start learning a more advanced language, or
Yeah.
remembering a more advanced language to take care of all of that. And I do believe, and I agree that animals is, how I see it while you were speaking, is that we see all these ancient cultures, for instance, the Egyptian, Hindu, like that they have animals, like praising them, but not in an idol, like not as
Right.
idols. It's just about honoring the high nature within them. Because if we unveil this as a hologram, algorithms and so forth, let's say that the beings that have the highest light would embody, it would reflect an algorithm that it's pulsing super fast, and other beings that are very low frequency, the algorithm would be like zoom.
Mhm.
So the more that we honor animals, what we are doing is spreading light. Because let's say that, how I see it again, how I perceive it, is that the more that we act honoring the animals, we're expanding their code, you know?
Exactly.
But they won't say it because it has to come through the heart. Just doing it because you are truly honoring the species and what they are bringing into your life, not because it will do you well or it's convenient for you, with it, like to live a higher reality, a higher level of reality.
Yeah.
That's one thing. And because I don't know if you have ever connected the animals as well, to the stars. We know that
Mhm.
many constellations have names of stars. And when I was asking you about the horse, there is this Pegasus cube, which is an asterum. By this, I mean, is the communion of different constellations. It's not a constellation per se, it's the communion of different constellations brought up together, and they create a super powerful frequency. So, this Pegasus cube, even if it's a winged horse, we know that here on Earth there were before winged horses, as unicorns, as dragons, and other
Right.
species. So one of the most, I don't know if you have heard that very specific factions use stars to have all the power that they have.
To use what stars?
Stars like astrology,
Hmm.
like astrology and all that as a science. Well, they use a lot the Pegasus cube, which is the chest
Mhm.
horse, to bringing all that power and
Yeah, amplify.
and create the reality. So I believe that the more that we are communing with the animals just from the heart, we're accessing to those stellar codes. We're accessing to
Mhm.
that power of manifestation. So
Yeah, 100%. I totally agree. It's really all about unified consciousness. And when we talk about unified consciousness, we're not just talking about unifying the consciousness of humans. We're talking about this like cosmic, galactic, unified consciousness, and the consciousness of this planet, and all of her beautiful children, the animals, the animal kingdom that represent her, that are fractals of her, that are part of her, represent the healing and the amplification of the frequency of this planet. And so when we as humans interact and honor and reconnect and reestablish the bond, then we can amplify the healing together, as one. And this planet has so many dimensions. And so these, winged beings, the Pegasus, the unicorn, Sasquatch, so many interdimensional species, the fairies, they're on this planet right now in our field. They are just in a higher dimension, which is why most people can't see them. Children see them a lot because they can see interdimensionally. And the more programmed we are, the lower frequency we are, the less likely we are to see interdimensionally. But these interdimensional and cosmic animals, species, are not even just from this planet. I mean, we have whales that are like full sentient beings that literally traverse the cosmos by themselves, as if the universe was a ocean. And they're these sentient, ginormous beings that are guardian spirits that protect this universe. There are cat feline beings, there are avian species, there are so many guardian spirits that are all over the planet and all over throughout the universe and cosmos, connected to all sorts of planets. Lyra, to the Pleiades, to Sirius, to places we've never even heard of, through universes that are parallel to this one. So it's really about, right now, it's the children are teaching us to activate the dormant DNA, which is the consciousness, so that we can shift our density of consciousness and we can finally unify, not just with each other, but amplify and unify as a collective group of species, of life, of light. And that's what's happening.
yeah, I agree. This is happening at so many levels, through the kids, through the ancient alien artifacts, through the astronomical events that are currently happening, like the 3A Atlas, one, other celestial bodies, that are everything. And you said something which I always mention, that is, information has always been there. And by information, I mean all type of beings, all type of. The thing is that our level of consciousness does only allow for us to see proportionally to the level of consciousness itself. So having said this, what would you say is the key point for people to see this reality? Because I know there are kids that already are born this way. They already have it. We have it. We lost it not lost it. Like we deactivated it at some point. We reactivated it. What do you think is the key note that people can that can use to relate themselves with it? I'm not saying, oh, this is, out of my field.
Yeah, I think that the easiest and the way that I coach my clients the most are a couple of things. One, shift your perception. Our perception is key, which is exactly what you were just mentioning. We are limited by what we perceive and how we interpret. So I'm a big macro perspective person. So I teach and coach both children and adults to look at their life from a bird's eye perspective. So imagine yourself as this eagle just flying above your life and look at all of the elements. Look at the perspectives of others around you. Look at all of the elements, all of the limitations. What are the lessons you could be learning? What do the emotions you're feeling actually mean? And lean into it instead of suppressing it by taking pills or numbing yourself or saying, I don't want to feel this. And it's really about going within and learning and reclaiming our innate abilities and powers. Because like you said, it wasn't taken away. It's just dormant. It's like if you look at just a basic light switch on the wall, somehow along the way, I call them the dark players, did a lot of modification through many different forms, and they turned the light switch off. And that's the dormant, the junk DNA. So right now our switch is turning back on for a lot. And it has a lot to do with us just neutralize. I tell people, just try to have a neutral perspective. The more neutral you are, the easier you can look at everything as a bird's eye view from a neutral perspective without the emotion. And then you will see through the illusion. Everything in your life will seem so much more clear, and you will be less triggered and you will be less programmable. That's the one cool thing about these children that I've noticed. I'm not saying that they can't be traumatized. I am not saying that they are perfect, but a lot of them are uncorruptible. They are actually distorters and disruptors. They come in here and they're bombarding the 3D code, the 3D matrix codes, the lower codes, the lesser codes of this matrix that keep things operating on a lower loosh level. And they come in and they distort and they disrupt and they're reharmonizing. And as we activate and open our hearts and go within and really reflect on who we are as an individuals and, start to let go of the limiting beliefs and judgment and the fear and who cares what everyone else is doing and compare ourselves to everyone else and just go within and look at ourselves from this bird's eye neutral perspective, then we grow this self-love, our heart expands. And then next thing you know, we have this explosion of love on this planet. And that's what's happening right now. I truly believe that's how we are activating. It is occurring right now in real time. And we're seeing evidence of that every day by us spontaneously just awakening and remembering who we are. But you have to neutralize the emotions. It will shift your perspective. And when your perspective shifts, I'm telling you, your whole life will change. You will look at everything completely different.
You touched upon a crucial topic, which is emotions. Because galactic beings have a different, well, we are galactic beings, but I mean, from other races, have a very different form of approach to what we call emotions.
Mm-hmm.
For them, it's just energy in motion. And the interesting thing is that we, at this moment, most of the memories that we store are based on our emotional body. So it's very intricate. It was configured that way precisely so that we could continue generating memories, selected memories through emotions. So if you want to, like, now you also said that if you are walking and by the forest and then you feel that you're an eagle, you visualize yourself as the eagle, like overflowing everything, overseeing everything, and so forth. And then, you know, you will get to feel as an eagle. You will get to be, see, perceive everything, sense as an eagle. So, this is the tricky part. I do agree that the way that we relate to what we call emotions is evolving for sure by removing the attachment. And
Mhm.
therefore, the word emotion will also shift in the way that we think that they are for,
Yeah.
because love is not about those type of emotions. That's different.
Mhm.
Feeling is not about those type of emotions. Feeling as sensing, as your pores, the pores in your skin wide open, and you sensing the space in between us, you
Yeah.
sensing the light in coming, reaching your eyes. That's different, than feeling emotional and being drawn by all those emotions, because we know that this reality was created precisely to harvest those emotions, to amplify any
Mhm.
type of emotion by distorting your perception on reality. So
Exactly.
these kids, I agree, I see it with my daughter, the way that she perceives reality, ever since she was a little girl, like her emotions are generated in a very different way. Like sometimes she even seems unemotional. And coming from an old school, you would say, oh, is she blocking her emotions? Is she numbing herself? And
Yeah.
that no, that's the original code, because she is actually sensing life and being aroused by life,
Yeah.
by other type of events, because the way that they digest their experiences, it truly comes from that unity consciousness. you
Mhm.
know when you're capable to just experience reality by the proportion of rendering that from a sovereign state that you're capable to deliver. You know so having said this, because I know that we are, oh, 222, beautiful.
Ah.
Here.
Well, someone asked a question. We probably should go back because I want to make sure I don't want them to think that we
Yeah, no, absolutely. Here.
forgot. So this is an important question, and I'm glad it was asked. Now, of course, you don't need somebody like me to tell you where your child is from. And it really, I'm going to be honest with you, it doesn't really matter on a grand scale. Again, on a macro scale, it doesn't matter. But if you happen to have a child and you notice that this child is very different and is likely labeled or hasn't been labeled yet, but if you took them to the doctor, they'd probably be labeled on the spectrum in some way for a variety of reasons. And you can just tell this child is here for the first time. It's not so much about where they came from, although it's cool to know. What's important to know is that they are an ascended being that volunteered to come here, that are not connected to 3D, and they are the innovators, the way showers, the star seeds, the light workers, and that have come here for a job to be part or be a bridge to a new world. They're part of the new world structure. So depending on the characteristics that they have and or the limitations that they have, there is a reason for it. So instead of panicking, and I'm trying to be broad because I don't know this particular woman's situation, and anyone listening could interpret this in many ways. But depending on what your child has limitations with, instead of freaking out and panicking about it or thinking, oh, they're not normal like the other children, think about the gifts involved in what it is that they're meant to do in their life, utilizing those characteristics that might be extreme, might be challenging, and might have side effects for something later. So they chose you as a parent for a reason, because they knew on some level you have a soul agreement that you would understand them, you would accept them, you would be their supporters, create a solid foundation and ground and support and protect them and nourish them in the way that they need it, as opposed to them being born into maybe a more 3D anchored family that would medicate them or say they're crazy or discount their visions, or saying maybe they have memories of other lifetimes and they're telling you about it. And instead of saying, oh, you're making this up and stop it and stop being crazy and silly, like, probably generations ago that happened. You're in their life to be like, really, tell me more. Because a lot of times the children aren't actually looking for us to have the right answers, because there isn't really a right answer a lot of the time. What it is and what they need is to feel supported, and they need to feel heard. So just you saying, okay, I understand you're struggling. How can we help each other? You're unique for a reason, and let's see what we can utilize your strengths, and what can you do with those strengths, and then how can we work through the weaknesses and why, and work through the challenges together. So I'm in a really quick way, what I'm trying to say is it doesn't necessarily matter where they come from. It's just identify why they're different, and and try to use your intuition as to, okay, how can I help them? How there's a reason for them being different. So why are they different, and what are they likely to do in the future with this? And I'm going to tell you one thing. I got the biggest lesson from my spirit guide that like yelled in my ear one time, because I was having so much trouble, because my second child is a star child. Star children are the ones that are oftentimes labeled with Asperger's. They ask a lot of questions. They always, it's never an easy, simple, yes, mom. It's, but why? They need to understand. They're analytical. So they have a million questions, but why? But why? But why about why? And then when they finally get the answer that they understand, they get it, they're like, oh, okay. They just needed to intellectually understand and process. And their processing time takes a little bit, and it can be quite exhausting. And I'm not a patient person. And so my first child was so easy. I mean, crystal children, they're not like that. You tell them what to do, they listen, they don't want to be in trouble, they don't ever talk back, and they're so easy. So when you have one that's asking, well, but why? And you're like, because I said so. But the point is, we're not supposed to be like that anymore. We're supposed to think about, but hold on a second, why are we doing it this way? Maybe there is a better way. And they teach us patience. They teach us to think outside of the box. And so I was getting frustrated, and I wanted to be like, and my guide said to me, Sherri, don't break him. Meaning, don't break their spirit. Like, listen, they're trying to teach you something. So if they're being really difficult or challenging or asking a lot of questions, or they're highly sensitive and empathic, or whatever it is, try not to yell, shame, punish, or put them down. Don't break them, because they are the way they came in for a reason, because they're going to use that later on in life for a very big purpose. And right now they're practicing.
Yeah,
Practicing for that.
Actually, you could even tell her, you can find out yourself, like that constant asking, but why? You find it out yourself, because that's also the part of their inner practice, to solve all their analytical questions, So
Yes.
I agree. They are very thankful for your answer. It's not easy being parent, yet it's one of the biggest missions, and highly rewarded, because I agree. As you're talking about all of this, I'm fitting it to my daughter Sophie, like, okay, this
Yeah, right.
Sometimes people look at me like, what kind of mother are you? Because I always challenge her, not in a bad way, better inspire her to find her own answers, to find her own way, to never be, chased or, married to just one answer, to discover that by herself, and always inspiring her highest skills, which I do believe it's very much connected to what you were saying, even though you don't understand where is their uniqueness coming from or heading to, the fact of perceiving it and protecting it as something sacred is super important. You mentioned safety. I believe that's critical for
Hmm.
our children, to make them feel safe.
Yes.
Because whomever feels safe then blossoms. Whatever doesn't feel safe will just shut down. So
Yes.
that is part of our big task, not only as parents, yet also as activators, as beings present in this stage of reality. Make yourself feel safe and the ones around you. And this is something that we can see very present in animals. What's one of their highest purposes? Making their their the word, or when the wolf has pack,
A pack.
making your
Sure.
pack feel safe. You
Exactly.
know, that's super important. Super important. There is another, because then regardless, we sometimes truly underestimate safety.
Yeah.
And the thing is that if you feel safe, then you just are open to experience, and you know that it's going to be okay regardless,
Yeah.
you know and also to show them how to create their own safety. I do believe that's also very important.
Yeah, and this reality, a lot of the design, the OOSH system is so that we, in every capacity, we don't feel safe. And then when we don't feel safe, we are in that fight or flight survival mode response, and that's how they keep us in the loop. I call negative loops. We create negative loop systems, and we have a hard time as adults breaking out of the loops of addiction, or lack of self-worth, or lack of self-confidence, or a million different loops systems there are. So these children come in, and they're such pure souls that the reason they're testing our patients and asking all the questions, and being and telling the teachers they're wrong, and saying that I don't want to learn this, and that and then and challenging us in every way possible, is to break us out of the loops, so that we can create new neural pathways. And we go and we need to surrender. Like, the emotions are great because they are indicators. They're free. Emotions are frequency, so they let us know when something is joyful, when something is not. And we're supposed to just feel in the emotion, and it pass through, and it doesn't become us, it doesn't consume us, but we gain some knowledge from the experience based on the emotion, and then we know what to do next. And our children, unfortunately, in school are taught to they're not taught proper ways to process the emotion, so they suppress. And biggest challenge that I see with the adult clients I work with is they don't know how to release. They don't know how to channel their emotions. We got so much pent up energy, and we're high frequency beings, and our body, we have all these autoimmune disorders. We have all of these dis-ease in our body because the two are not, the brain and the heart are not working together. There's no coherence. And we need to teach these children from the beginning, how can I release these emotions and not become attached to them? Because they're learning, some of these children, what is this fear? I never felt this fear before. This sadness, this is horrible. And then they get trapped in it, and then they can also get stuck in loops. So it's our jobs as the adult to also help them with conflict resolution and how to release, and so you don't get stuck in
Great.
your own loop. So there's a lot of layers to it, but they're teaching us and we're teaching them, basically. End of story.
Yeah, it's a continuous feedback and a lot
Right.
of humbleness. Yeah, as you said, most of the time the easiest way would be like, because I'm your mother and you chose me, and deal with
Yeah.
it. And a kid would tell you, well, you also chose me, so deal with it as well.
Exactly. So true. So true. Yeah.
So yeah, they again, like I always talk to my daughter as when I talk to an adult.
Hmm.
And again,
Yes.
people look at me like, but she's just a kid, and I'm like, like
Mhm.
on a layer, yes, she is, but she's even wiser than most of the adults that
It's
I
true.
know. So
It's
again,
very true.
yes, and if you treat your children, which are, your children. It's just a way of saying it. But if you treat this star seeds, this pure expressions of source, as that, they will blossom as
Hmm.
that, you know
Yes.
so I
Yes.
think that we are going beyond those belief systems that being parent is a burden, that it would be so much easier if you were not a parent, that you could be fulfilling your mission way simpler, or
Hmm.
like all those aspects. And I'm just bringing this up because I know that a lot of people in the field are facing that, and that's why they also don't want to have kids anymore, besides the fact that the reality, the stage of humanity right now. And I do believe that everyone has a mission. Yes, some not to have kids, some others to have. The thing is that kids don't define your mission or don't limit your mission. They are part of the mission if you choose
Exactly.
to. So,
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, look at me. So I believe that my children were my catalysts and my activators and my awakeners, and they are everything. They are my whole life. But that was by design. I clearly came in to bring in the divine feminine and that mother Gaia essence, to raise starseed children in a safe environment and to be of a spiritual influence, bringing in that security and that feeling of safety and allowing them to be who they are, and help other children do the same. But that doesn't mean that's the same journey for everyone else. There are people that simply have soul agreements to bring in these souls so that they can have their own unique life experience, and they may never see them again. They may be adopted. They may not be close. They may have different dynamics, and there is no right wrong recipe. It's just dependent on the soul's path. What's your destiny? What did you choose to do? Why are you here? And so everybody is different. We all have roles that we're playing right now, I believe. Every single one of us has a role to play, and everyone is here for a reason. Whether
yeah.
you are here to heal simply, and that is the only reason you came into this life, is because you had so much fragmentation and you've had so many lifetimes of just trauma and trauma and trauma and enslavement, and this is the lifetime you came to come in and just heal and be. There are many of those, and then there are those that are in the complete other extreme spectrum, that are our ascended beings that came here to be guides and mentors and activators and healers, and then there's everything in between. And we're all playing many roles at many times in many different ways, and I think that's the beauty of it, and that's why they want to divide us. They don't want us to have unity. They want us to hate each other because of race, because of age, because of ethnicity and demographics and money, and anything they can do, politics, whatever they can do to divide us. They don't want us to come together, because then we unify. So they do everything they can to separate us and make us hate each other.
Yeah, because I'm just going to summarize because I know that you have to go, but this is so important. The structures that they have created have to are were precisely to instigate competition in a non-healthy way, due to the uniforms that they want to create, always. Okay, I'm going to put you guys a uniform and you can just do that. I'm going to put you guys another uniform. So then, if one person that is here wants to do what the other one is doing, no, you have a uniform. And that's why. So that starts to create jealousy, that form of, competing with isolation, separation, no, my way, no, your way. And the thing is that each one has a unique way that is a composition of each one of us. When we acknowledge that my way has a bits of your way, of that way, down, then we know how to co-create and weave within all those aspects of reality. We allow ourselves to create that space for the children to nourish from that level of reality, then
Mhm.
we will be creating a type of reality that we could have never imagined it on,
Exactly.
by the level of creativity that it has, you know. And yeah, we can continue talking
I
about
know
like
we could
other
talk about it for hours and
yeah,
hours. It never stops. I mean, basically, to sum it up, it's like the what they want is us to create, co-create together, disillusionment, fear, and separation, so that we keep this lower density field operating in the way that they want. That's for conducive for the dark players, right? But
yeah,
right now, if we work on ourselves and we go within and we love ourselves first and we forgive ourselves first, and then we stop judging others and we stop comparing ourselves to others, and we open up our hearts and we activate and we neutralize our emotions and we look at things from a much broader perspective, and we surrender is the most important thing. We just surrender and say, you know what? I'm going to be more mindful of how I am, how am I co-creating this reality moving forward? Because what we think, what we dwell on, what we watch, everything we do matters. It's all energy. So what I'm thinking about all day, and what I'm obsessing about all day, and what I'm worrying about all day, I am projecting out as part of the co-creation of the collective. So if we are all collectively working to co-create something beautiful, something divine, we don't even have to have the architecture in our mind. It could just be the for the highest good of all. It doesn't have to be specific. That's what's happening right now, and that's how we move forward, and in a divine, with divine purpose, and we take control and we take our power back.
yes, and also dissolving the perception of time, because now time is dictated by the heart. The right timing is dictated by the heart, as the beat of the heart. You know, a lot of people could perhaps be experiencing this, that their plans are not going as before, that
Hmm.
not be projecting their reality in the way that before, that it's flowing in a very different way. It's because it's following the rhythm of the heart. When your heart is open to receive that reality, you will be experiencing it mainly. That one thing. And, like from all of our talk, all the beauty, the richness that was, pulsing everywhere. Thank you so much. I want to say that delivering, creating a reality, co-creating a reality with our kids, to provide them the that space in which they are capable to remember what space, what place are they meant to occupy in this co-creation,
Hmm.
and doing what. Having the kids those two answers, what are they here for, and which place they need to occupy for that. And each answer will be leading to the other. Having those two ones, you know they are already, granted in happiness and joy. This is my perception. I think that one of the things that they struggle the most is, where should I place myself in this family, in this reality, in this society? What's my place to occupy? That
Yes.
place will be given by why you came here for. And the reason to why you came here for will come eventually at the perfect moment, as you continue to explore yourself and feel comfortable and grateful for what you are best at. What
Yes.
about you? What would you say about, summarizing everything?
Yeah, no, I mean, you said it better than I could have said it. It's about self-discovery, and so it's allowing our children and us. It doesn't even matter how old we are. You could be in your 20s, you could be in your 50s, you could be retiring from a career that you've had your whole life, and still self-discovery can occur. Because we're constantly evolving, and we're constantly creating better versions of ourselves all the time. We never stop growing, we never stop evolving. So it's just, I the exploration is the fun part. and allowing our children to explore and figure out who they are. The biggest mistake, and the last thing I'll say is the biggest mistake parents make that I see and that I coach is stop trying to make decisions or telling your children what to do based on what you think is right, because they are here to bring in new energy, new thought patterns, new ideas and innovation. And so if we keep them in the loop and we tell them and feed them what they're supposed to do because that's what you think they should do, then we're never going to evolve as a civilization. And so we have to let go and let them be who they are. And if you have multiples, let them be individuals. I have 3 children that are very different, and I have to parent them different. I talk to them differently. They're just completely different souls. It's very apparent, and I have to work harder as a parent to navigate the challenges that come up, because I have to remember which one I'm talking to and what techniques work with one and not the other. And most people don't have patience for that because previous generations, they just got beat, or they just got told to shut up or go to their room, or they got things taken away. And that's not happening anymore. And these children, they desire, require better from us. We can do better for them, and we should be doing more, and we have the capability, and we are doing better. But it takes patience and it takes diligence, and that's part of our learning too.
Exactly. We also need to be patient with ourselves. That's the core.
Right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, we make mistakes. And you know what? The most humbling thing is when you tell your children, I was wrong. Look,
yeah,
whoops, I made a mistake. Mom makes mistakes too. You know what? They really learn from that, because when they see mom makes a mistake, or dad, and you can admit it, and you can say, oh man, maybe I should have done it a different way. They learn the techniques of navigating mistakes, and it's okay to make a mistake. And oh, look at mom, she redirected. She figured out a different way, and she admitted it. She didn't hold it in. She didn't get embarrassed. Like we need to show them. We got to be
yes,
the examples.
yes. And now that you're designing all that beautiful structure, and we will be talking about that later, this learning centers, because I think it's super important. And I do believe that also, if you guys watching this show, joining us, your beautiful tribe, if you ask yourselves onto what level or depth of shame has shame been involved in your reality, whether if it's directly to you or to the ones that you love. Because if we see all those programs of bullying, they are based on shame, creating shame.
Yes.
If you see the oppression form of system, controlling system, it's based on shame,
Mhm.
exposing, feeling exposed. So if you can eradicate that from your life, that will bring you into a very sovereign space, and feeling free enough to actually deliver your own choices, based from here, and not to fit somewhere, not to feel ashamed. So
Yes.
yes, where can people find you?
Everything is under my name, so I made it real easy. So my website is sherridivband.com. Instagram is my name, under my name. YouTube channel is under my name. Facebook is under my name. My nonprofit, and if you want to learn more about Aramis, we are looking for donors, and so large donors to help us open the first physical center in Florida. So you can contact me directly through my website and email me. But we also accept smaller donations. All donations help, because they all go towards many, many expenses that go into operating even an online virtual school. See, I said the word school, center, learning opportunity for children. And so the website for Aramis is aramiscreativelearning.com. You can find I have 10 children's books, and I have 5 adult books, and they're all on Amazon. You can just Google my name, and they'll all come up.
Yeah, you already got an idea of all the rich content that those books have, and
Yeah.
truly important in shaping this reality. Well, Thank you again for coming, guys. Stay tuned because we will be doing other shows for sure.
Yeah.
And we were even thinking, how important it is for kids to connect with this ancient alien artifacts. Creating these programs that, because they are activators. There are many ways to expand through this. The important thing is to do something about it. You know, and
Yes.
coming together and having fun while doing that. That's another thing that kids always show us, the dynamism of creation. And well, by the way, if you want to get your tickets for the Rise of the Guardians in Sedona, the link is in the description below. Join us. It's going to be fascinating. I will also be at CLE talking about the artifacts, the ancient alien artifacts. We will be disclosing very important information from a scientific and a spiritual approach, um, as well as some upcoming programs regarding to the education of how to connect with these ancient artifacts. So join us at CLE. I will also be in January, and in a couple of new conferences that I hadn't spoken about. So stay tuned, and as well in South Dakota in by July. So I will be sharing all of that information. Thank you so much for sharing us. Thank you, Sherri. Such a pleasure. I feel that soon we will be physically
Yeah,
meeting.
I'm so glad that we finally connected. We met years ago for a brief moment, and there was just too much going on, and then we reconnected. But I believe in divine timing, and I feel a connection to you. And I'm so thank you so much for inviting me on. I'm sure this will not be the last time that we are on each other's channels, and I'm sure we are going to be speaking at some conference at the same time at some point soon because we're both traveling all over the place. So it'll
I
happen.
I know. Well, anything else that you want to share with the public?
Just
With
thank
the
you. Thank you,
tribe?
everybody, for your time and listening. And I appreciate the kind comments and everything.
Oh, thank you. Thank you again. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Such a deep pleasure. And until next time, HUNUH.